Our house always smelled like warm chocolate chip cookies, and my mom always picked us up on time. Until the day she didn't. I immediately knew that something was wrong, and my deep concern was confirmed when she called to tell me that there was a reason for my 8-year-old brother's recent headaches. The doctors had discovered a cancerous brain tumor the size of a baseball in little Luke's posterior fossa, or the lower left side of his brain. My family was staying at the hospital just down the road, rushing to prepare for surgery, and through our shared tears, my mom uttered the forbidden phrase, "This sucks." And just like that, the bubble of my perfect life popped, and things got messy fast. My efforts to manage my feelings surrounding my brother's diagnosis drove me into a fog of severe anxiety. I isolated myself, subconsciously fearing that letting others in would allow for another terrifying diagnosis to enter my life. After all, I had an image to uphold, that of a gal with her stuff together, who was never to be perceived as vulnerable or needy, and who could always stand on her own 2 feet, loud, proud, and perfect. I realize now that I had constructed a military-grade wall around myself to protect from the discomfort of authentic human interaction. And just as I had begun to scratch the surface of my pain surrounding my brother's cancer, we were all thrust into a global pandemic. Restricting social interaction even more was so great then. I was socially distant before it was cool, but beknownst to me, a shocking number of my peers had experienced parallel challenges at the very same time. When fearful, we all become prisoners of our minds, and to spare you the heavy details, it became clear that I needed a skosh of help. So I embarked on a journey of recovery, healing, and growth, which, surprise, surprise, required levels of communication and human interaction way outside my former comfort zone. There's chemical justification for what each of us is going through. People, especially kids and teens, struggle in continuous isolation, whether physical, mental, or emotional. There's actually a scientific reason why so many of us experience similar adversity. And whether that reality is initially comforting or not, let's take a look at the brain science underlying our collective reaction to pandemic-induced isolation. What's going on in each and every one of our minds? So, as we know, the brain is one vast complexity. The organ controls almost everything we do: thought, emotion, memory, even breath, essentially every process that regulates our bodies. For simplicity's sake, today we'll tackle one system, the limbic system, which spearheads, get it, our emotional processing. The limbic system presents as a tangled network of nerve cell structures that communicate with one another via electrical signals, sending everything racing through our minds into one singular place. Based on the information carried by those electrical signals, our limbic systems react by releasing one of 2 chemicals: cortisol, which sounds alert systems for conflict aversion and protection, or alternatively, oxytocin, which encourages collaborative and communicative skills and trust in others. While short-lived, both oxytocin and cortisol leave lasting effects on our patterns of thinking. With this in mind, medical professionals have concluded that as one experiences the trials and tribulations of everyday life, the limbic system provides changing responses, resulting in an emotional learning process. By being given the opportunity to learn in accordance with our feelings, we are able to think intuitively, identify what we value, strategically set goals, and organize culture, all skills that contribute to our development into well-rounded, socially interactive individuals. So, reining in all of this scientific jargon, we can apply this understanding of emotional learning to how we communicate. When we seek out friends to check in with or coworkers to chat with over lunch, we initiate the release of those feel-good chemicals. And by repeating that action, our brains are so beautifully designed to process and search for more of that positive feedback, leading people to yearn for that authentic human interaction. During the period of isolation, I developed a love for gardening. My collection of houseplants soon flourished into what my dad now calls a jungle, and the plants that sit on my windowsill are now perpetually drawn towards the light. In the presence of the sun, roots take hold, leaves sprout, and flowers bloom. Light fuels their growth. Similarly, human connection fuels our growth. But what actually defines that connection? Through interpersonal communication, we grow away from those anxious tendencies to self-isolate, and we benefit both ourselves and each other by means of human connection. Connection defines our culture and our sense of belonging, and in the words of Troy Bolton, we're all in this together. So true, Troy. When I was first told of my brother's cancer diagnosis, a wave of soul-crushing fear washed over me. But rather than cry, my preferred outlet in the face of stress, I recall wanting to talk to someone, anyone who knew more about this fear-turned reality than my mom and I. I gathered up the nerve to talk with one of my childhood family friends, a boy who, just like my little brother, had been diagnosed with a terrifying cancer just a year earlier that had absolutely rocked his and his family's worlds. I was the shy and awkward middle school girl, and Sean was a cute 8th grader. But by lending an ear to my worries and offering a few words of encouragement and support, Sean led me to believe that in the long run, things would all be okay. Talking to Sean was healing for me. So when we look at the big picture, we all need to seek out an accessible solution for communication apprehension. Simply put, we just need to reach out. In the wake of the challenges I've experienced, I made a significant effort to re-immerse myself in my community. I've built up resilience and relationships by stepping outside of my former comfort zone and protective fence, and worked towards more vulnerability in all facets of my life. I began by simply making a greater effort to casually chat with teammates on my cross-country team. And soon enough, I grew in confidence, both within myself and our relationships. I came to learn the importance of taking initiative. I started by talking about things I love in a safe space with people I love. And that same potential for relationship lies within each and every one of us. We have to be willing to take the plunge and lean into change. Simply asking how someone is doing or telling a silly story can lead to your next deeply meaningful relationship. Feeling overwhelmed and scared is totally natural, but once you start, the rest will follow. Today, I look at my journey and what has brought me to arrive at this point right here. Luke's cancer battle was incredibly tumultuous, but it was also a gift, oddly enough. I discovered a deeper understanding of myself and meaningful relationships that I hadn't known were possible prior, all because I let go and I reached out. So take a lesson from those plants in my bedroom. Soak in the light of human relationship. Allow it to fuel you to reach new heights, and in doing so, you'll stand tall and flourish. Thank you.